Who exactly was the historical Paul, and what kind of an apostle was he? Professor John Pilch of the Context Group of Biblical Scholars helps shed light on this subject. Paul is a figure shrouded by spurious familiarity.
In our social science commentary on the letters of Paul, Bruce and I explain how we view Paul. In summary, we take him at his word. He insists that he is an apostle, yet quite unlike any other apostle. The Greek word for apostle refers to someone commissioned by someone else for some mission. Commissioning is the key. Apostles fulfill very different missions. They can be sent for various reasons. Philosophers consider themselves apostles of God to make people aware of how to live fittingly to please the deity. Paul believed he was an apostle of God because he was commissioned to proclaim, quote-unquote, the gospel of God. But Paul was not simply authorized to make a proclamation on God's behalf. Rather, he was commissioned to proclaim something new, something hitherto unheard of. In our time and culture, people commissioned to make known something new are called change agents. The task of a change agent is to communicate and diffuse some innovation. And that is precisely what Paul was about. The emphasis on new aspect is what sets Paul apart from other apostles or commissioned messengers who communicated information from some authorizing agency about some ongoing agenda like tax rates, the king's family, things like that. Such messengers really have nothing significantly new to communicate. Now, as a rule, a change agent is an authorized person who influences innovation decisions in a direction deemed desirable by a change agency. The change agent functions as a communication link between two or more social entities, that of the receivers of the communication, the clients, and that of the change agency, the one sending the change agent. In the New Testament story, authorized change agents include the 12 sent by Jesus during his career. Those sent by the Jesus Group agency, such as the 12 in Jerusalem, namely the Hellenist ministers in Acts 6. And the disciples of the Pharisees, sent by them to entrap Jesus, mentioned with Herodians in Matthew 22. Paul was a Jesus Group change agent of a distinctive sort. He was not sent by any such group. He insists that his authorization and commission came directly from God. Quote, Paul, an apostle, not from men, nor through man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. End quote. It came to Paul through a revelation. Quote, for I did not receive my gospel from man, nor was I taught it, but it came through a revelation of Jesus Messiah, end quote. In Paul's context, a revelation is an alternate state of consciousness experience. All of us are capable of that. In this, he was just like Jesus and John the Baptist, both authorized to proclaim God's good news through similar alternate states of consciousness experiences. Sometimes I use the abbreviation ASC, so if I slip into that by habit, that's what I'm talking about, alternate states of consciousness. The common experience that Jesus and John the Baptist shared were his baptism. It was an alternate state of consciousness experience for both of them. Since these change agents were not sponsored or authorized by any observable human agency, they had to face questions of authorization or authority by those who inquired about or rejected that innovation. The chief priests, the scribes, the elders, they came to him in the temple and said, quote, by what authority are you doing these things? Or who gave you the authority to do them? End quote. Jesus' riposte to this challenge was to ask a similar question about John's authority. Was it from heaven or from men? Jesus, John the Baptist, and Paul were precisely such unauthorized change agents who communicated information about an innovation. They influenced innovation decisions in a direction deemed desirable by them by reason of their experience of God, who was the change agency behind the symbol system they constructed. The urgency that Paul, like John and Jesus before him, experienced intimates that his activities derived from the charge he had received from God. This feature underscores the conviction of early Jesus Group members that the founder of both the task and coalition inaugurated by Jesus, as well as the post-resurrection Jesus Groups, was none other than the God of Israel. The innovation that Jesus proclaimed was a forthcoming Israelite theocracy. In Matthew, it's the kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven, excuse me. In Mark and Matthew and Luke, there's reference to the kingdom of God. That's theocracy. The innovation that Paul proclaimed was that the God of Israel raised Jesus from the dead, thus revealing Jesus to be Israel's Messiah and cosmic Lord with a view to this forthcoming Israelite theocracy. Already in his earliest letters, Paul writes to the Thessalonians, quote, "For they, other Jesus groups, report concerning us what a welcome we had among you, and how you turned to God from idols to serve a living and true God, and to wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead, Jesus, who delivers us from the wrath to come," end quote. According to the New Testament witness then, the founder or change agency of Jesus groups and their ideology is God, the God of Israel. God's directly authorized change agents such as John the Baptist, Jesus, and Paul all function for the same change agency, namely the God of Israel. To shift the thrust away from God, the agency, and put it on Jesus, John the Baptist, or Paul, the agents, is to miss the thrust of early Jesus groups. Only later would they emerge as Christianity.